Hello, it's Tuesday, 12:30, and it's such a beautiful, beautiful day. And welcome to the Mindset Michelle TV show. I'm so excited to have you here today and so excited that you're joining us for this fabulous show. And my guest today is an amazing, incredible, fabulous person as well. And I'm so excited to welcome today Julian Mather. Hello, Julian.
Hello, Michelle. Just pump me up like that. Blow smoke up my patootie. That's great. I'm happy for you to do it.
Thank you, Julian. And Julian, for those that aren't aware, is the video magician. He is this incredible, amazing person. And I know I say fabulous so often, but he is a fabulous person. And his background is so interesting and so exciting, ranging from sniper through to videographer. So there's a lot of world travel there, a lot of camera work there. And nowadays, Julian is more well known for helping people to be better in front of the camera, like myself and others. And I'm so excited to have him here today so he can talk about his journey, but also share some tips along the way about how all of us can be better in front of the camera. So welcome, Julian. Would you like to tell people a little bit more about yourself?
I sure would. Well, look, I did really well in school if you don't count learning. It was pretty key to my journey because I wagged school. I became brilliant at wagging school, but it was where I took myself. I took myself to the state library and I spent months and months in there. And I was poring over every book on photography, every book on photojournalism, because that's what I wanted to be. And then amongst all those like grainy black and white pictures all around the world, like a lot of the times the secrets are written between the lines. Well, it jumped out at me what I needed to do is that if I was going to be a photojournalist, it was not going to happen in Brisbane where I lived. I had to get out and see the world. And I had no idea. I mean, I'm like 17 and a half, 18 at this stage. And one day I was walking down the street and there was a bus shelter, and on the side of the bus shelter was an army recruiting poster. And it had these soldiers all dressed up in their camouflage and their rifles, but it was the trees because they were pine trees. And even in my simplistic young mind, I went, oh, they're not eucalypt trees, they're pine trees. That must be somewhere else in the world. Maybe that's an avenue for me. So long story short, I signed up to the army, and that's when the yelling started. It went on for quite a long time because they said I could go in and be a photographer. And when I got in there, they said, they didn't tell you that, did they? And they found me a lovely place in the infantry. Wasn't that happy in there. So I started to search around within the infantry to somewhere where I could get a bit more autonomy. And I found out that being an army sniper meant that you could work by yourself a lot of the time. And that suited my personality. I got to tell you, Michelle, I'm just like deep down, I'm an introvert. That idea of being by myself was fantastic. So I did that for a couple of years, but it wasn't, that view of the world through a little narrow scope wasn't really what I was after. So I left. And I went out and still pursued my goal to be a photojournalist, but I ended up in a photo lab printing baby photos. Nope, that wasn't it. Finally got into ABC television on a traineeship and ended up staying there a short amount of time, like 25 years, I say. But I became a documentary cameraman, which is what I wanted to do. And it was what I called the second best job in the world. I mean, they would literally put a plane ticket in one hand, money in the other, kick me out the door and say, go tell people stories. It was a great gig. Went to great places, but it was the people in front of the camera who influenced my thinking. And they influenced my thinking so much that at the top of my game in television, I walked away. And I took this program an idea I'd been developing in my head for years. I was going to teach philanthropy to school children. So I took this program out into the world and it was a commercial failure. After 2 years, I had no money and I had to reinvent myself because my TV career had sailed off into the distance. Now, get this. Apparently, people don't trust the media. I know.
What a surprise.
As a cameraman, I always carried some magic in my camera vest, because magic is a really good way to break down barriers and to build rapport with people, to get them smiling and laughing a little bit. So I took these basic magic skills that I had, and I learned really quickly, and I reinvented myself as a professional magician. And I essentially did that for 5 years or so. And though I learned a lot, and I ended up doing about 2,000 magic shows, I learned like so much about presenting in front of people. It wasn't really what I wanted to do. I still wanted to affect some sort of change. I ended up with a YouTube channel based around magic, and it for a whole heap of reasons, it did really well. And it's still up there. It's called Julian's Magician School. It's got 30 million views and 140,000 subscribers. But I started to reach out to I started to look into the metrics of the people who were watching me, and I thought this was just kids. And I got this huge shock. There was a spike of males 35 to 55 years old who were watching me. So I reached out to them. I said, "Who are you? What are you doing watching me for here?" They sent me back 33,000 words. I did a word count on it. And they spilled their guts, and they said, "Look, you know, all our life we wanted to be professional children's entertainers, and we know tricks, but we don't know how to put them together in a show. We don't know how to present them, and you show how to do that." So I said, "Well, if I was to do one more thing, you know, for you, what would it be?" And I said, "We want to know how to put a magic show together." So I created a course that became really quite successful. That led me on to creating a company with a guy in the UK. We created the world's first online training academy for professional children's entertainers. That went well. And what we were essentially doing, we were teaching people hard skills like some magic, balloon twisting and juggling, but we were teaching them the psychology of change, because they were stuck here and they wanted to be unstuck over here, but they didn't know how. So that mindset and that psychology got them to there. That worked up until about a couple of years ago. And I said, I want to do something different now. I've got this thing I like to reinvent myself. So I took that same psychology, and I saw that there were all these people stuck in business wanting to start with video, and they wanted to be over here, but something was stopping them. So I've used that same mindset process and stuck video on it, and that's where I am, the video magician today.
Wow, I'm blown away with just such an incredible journey, and thank you for because I'm sure there's so much more in it as well, but for so succinctly sharing it with us. The sense that I get of how much and how closely, you know, the human spirit and human beings has been such a driving force, whether it was when you were looking at the photos or whether you were creating the courses to help children's entertainers. You know, having there's very few people, I think, that are in the world like you that have studied humans and the human behaviors and essence and everything in the way that you have, because I truly do think that it's magic when people are doing it well behind the camera, with whether it's a documentary or taking photos, but also then to transition and go, well, from your experience doing the children's entertainment, well, how do I join both worlds together? And it's that real masterful understanding that I think you've encapsulated so well in that story you've explained.
Look, there's so much there we could unpack, but it all comes from a love of learning. And you've got to remember, when I was a documentary cameraman, I had my own personal anthropological lab. I got to study people, because documentary is long form. So rather than news, where you're in and out maybe in a couple of hours, or current affairs, you're there for a day. Documentary, we were with people for a day, for a week, for a month, and sometimes repeatedly over years. So you get to study people. And again, it's all about patterns. You get to see patterns. And I wanted to know, why were people in front of my lens there? Because generally they were there if something terrible or big had happened in their life, or for some reason that they were affecting change. And I didn't get it. I didn't feel like I could be part of that. So I wanted to know, and I was looking for patterns. And after studying for years, I finally worked it out. You want to know what it is?
Well, I'm interested in hearing, and especially if this relates to what you, with everything that you've seen and you've done and the way that you've looked at humans and patterns, what do you think success is then? What does success mean to you?
All right. So I'll just go back because this keys perfectly into that. So why were these people successful? What were they doing? And when I looked at it, because what we do, we would go with successful people. Now, success by many metrics. We're not just talking money. It could be education, it could be belief, it could be status, it could be just, joy of life, whatever their success was. I wanted to know what they knew. And the common factor was we would work with them. And we would go, oh, can we film you, say, on Monday morning early? And I go, oh, no, I can't do it on Monday morning because I get up on Monday morning and I go swimming. Oh, well, what about Tuesday morning? Oh, well, see, Tuesday morning we get up early, we take the kids to, well, what about Wednesday evening? Oh, and see, Wednesday evening, there was always something they were doing. And that's when and the other thing is when you hang around with successful people long enough, you get to realize that they have a public persona, but behind it, they're just like you, they're just like me, they're just like each and every one of you listening out there. They're flawed, fallible human beings stumbling through life, just trying to make the most of it. And when I realized that, I went, oh, this is what it is extraordinary people are ordinary people who do extra. That's it. That was the common thing. And when I realized that was like a light bulb that went off in my head, because when you unpack that, it means if you want to be extraordinary, you have to be ordinary to begin with. And your honor, the world's most ordinary man. I've done a lot, but there's nothing I can point my finger at that I'm particularly good or, was blessed at. So, I'm a firm believer in successful people are made, they're not born, because I've seen a lot of people who could have been successful and it ended up going nowhere.
That's so true. And I think that the thing that makes people extraordinary, and I love the way you put that, is that they do that extra work. I think that that's quite critical. And so what would be three or what would be your key tips that you would say to people, especially with your experience and background, would be your ways or your key things to actually being extra in their lives?
And Meg, well, to me, so I follow this process I've called Own Up, Wise Up, Step Up. It's just and it's taken me years to come to this, but it's what I follow. And Own Up is about accepting responsibility. When I was an Army sniper, one of the things I loved doing was I got access to helicopters. I could literally book a helicopter. And it was great. They'd stick you in this helicopter and waka, and they'd fly you up to some remote location and they'd drop you off, or you by yourself, or maybe with just one other person. And it was left up to you. And what they used to do, as you went, they said, have you got your rifle? Check. Have you got your radio? Check. Have you got your mirror? Check. And what they used to do is give us these little mirrors, they're just metal polished stainless steel mirrors. Now, there were many purposes for this. One of the ones, you start every day with one of these, and you'd be there and you'd be out, have all your camouflage paint on, and you'd go, mirror, mirror in the bush, who's the most handsome bloke in this bush? You are, Julian, without a doubt. Oh, thank you, mirror. Roger out. So that kept the spirits up. But the most important thing they said with this mirror, they said, if you've ever got a problem, ask the man in the mirror, because he's the one who's going to sort it for you. And it was where I started to first get this idea about personal responsibility. And so anyone who's stuck, you want any sort of change in your life, it comes back to you deciding, and it's just different choices we make and being responsible. Am I going to be a victim or a victor? Am I going to go on and keep reacting the same way I react to everything? Or am I going to learn to new ways to respond? And probably the biggest choice that you have to make is you have to decide, what am I going to leave behind to become something new? Because, you know, there's only so much space that we can take up as a human in what we do. And if you want to change part of that, become something new, you really have to be willing to leave something behind. And I clearly remember when I left television, as I was saying before, you know, it was me. It was everything about me. And I was sitting in my bench, actually upstairs here. This is, you know, I don't know, 13 years ago or something. And I was sitting on the bench and I was listening to an ABC radio program. Oh, this is really good. This is really good. But something went like that in me, and I went, oh, I've got to leave that behind. And I just started crying. And it was like, and I don't mean crying, I mean like just bawling my eyes out. And what I was doing was I was mourning. I had made the decision. And that's where change happens. Change happens when you actually make a decision to move on to something new. Because, you know, once you've made the decision, you know this, Michele. I mean, if you've made the decision to do something, you know, if someone tries to make you do something, they can't make you. But if you've made the decision to do something, they can't stop you.
And I think you raise a really good point there, Julian, with the grieving. I think, you know, when I talk about mindset, or when I hear other professionals talking about change and making those difficult decisions or choices at the time, I think that very few people talk about that process of grieving. And I think it's really important to recognize that. I think the Buddhists have this as a philosophy. They talk about you have to die to be reborn. And they have an expression around having 1,000 deaths a day. And what they're talking about is that you're dying from the old you to become the new you. And I love how you're describing there that when you made that choice, when you had that awareness, you went into the grief as the old Julian was dying, and you didn't know where it was going to go, but you knew that it was time to change.
Yeah, and you know, the thing is that leading up to that, it's struggle. It's like, why aren't I changing? Why aren't things happening for me? Why? And then and see, the thing is, you don't know when this point is coming. You don't, but it just comes. And when it comes, it's so clear to you. It's like a slingshot out the other side. You just launch off.
And you're so correct. I again, like you, if we had days and hours, I could talk through so many different examples of leaving Perth for the first time where I grew up, leaving Australia, leaving this, leaving that. All of those quite significant choice points were things that I think with a lot of the work that I do, and I think you must be doing with the video side of things, is actually helping people to connect to that knowing, so that they let go of all of the noise that goes on and naturally goes on throughout the day, throughout your life, but to connect into that knowing so that you know when it's time to let go of the past and move into something new.
Yeah, yes, complete agreement.
And I was trying to remember, we got up to the own up, which was step 1. Did we get to step 2 and 3 with the...
Oh, okay. So own up and take responsibility. The second is wise up, because you can't win a new game playing by the old rules. And so many times that when you do work out, you do want to change. Quite often you're going with these out of date ideas that you've been carrying around in your head that have, you know, worked for you for so long. So you've got to be, I mean, anyone moving forward, oh, I hate that saying, do not say moving forward. It's such horrible corporate speak. In the future, let me go. So there was a guy, oh, now his name's gone out of my head. How can I forget? But the future, Alvin Toffler, back in the 1970s, who wrote this the most amazing thing. He said, the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write. It'll be those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. And this idea of being a lifelong learner is critical now more than it's ever been, because there's so much change that we're all finding ourselves unwittingly having to reinvent ourselves. But the problem is we've come out of this education system, which is binary, that has told us all, you know, for 12 years of our life, there's a right answer and there's a wrong answer. And if you get the wrong answer, we're going to put you back in the system and reprocess you until you get the right answer. And we carry this. So this is just an example of one of these crazy ideas that we carry, but doesn't actually fit with where the future is going. So the ability to enjoy learning, I think, is critical.
I think you're really right, because there was only ever, for many people, that choice between going to a technical college or going to a university. And even much of the system is still based on that. Whereas that third area of becoming an entrepreneur is something that, you know, many other countries and cultures have becoming an entrepreneur as a part of their system already. And I think in Australia, we're sadly lacking that kind of mentorship or pathways for people to learn about how to become an entrepreneur from a much earlier age than people like yourself and myself, where we're doing it as adults already and with careers that we've already been doing. And step number 3
is step up. Yeah, is step up, because, you know, you own up and take responsibility, you wise up, you get these new ideas and strategies. But quite often, I've, you know, and found this myself, you end up just going around and around in a circle with this. You know, I'll just do a bit more training, I'll just do, you know, and it's procrastination. It's pure and simple procrastination. So you've got to have a point that you're going to step up. And I talk about it as going from sincere to serious, because, I mean, I was sincere about wanting to change, and I meet all these other people, whether it's in video, everyone's sincere, but they're not changing, because, again, it's the decision. It's when you've decided is when you take that little leap up into being serious about it. So that's the process, and I'm always double checking myself on that.
And I think you're right, because the extra part of that within your process is actually you have to do the work. And that's what I explain to people with the mindset work as well. It's great, whatever process or whatever methodology we follow in the work I do, you still have to do the work. And the same with you. You can own up, wise up, and step up, those wonderful 3 processes, but you still have to keep doing the work, that lifelong learning there.
It's lifelong learning, Michele, and it's also a long time for change to happen. So the change is triggered with the decision, but the actual arrival at where you want to be. I've got a thing, it's another thing I work by, it's called the 18-25 rule. Because I see so many people, you know, you go online, it's 31, you know, it's 30 days to this, you know, 6 months and you'll be a completely new person. Of course, none of that is true. I found out, I call it the 18-25 rule, because I work in 5-year blocks. Anytime I'm affecting change in my life, I expect it to realistically to take 5 years. And so to get there, 5 by 365 is 1825. And all I've found out is you've got to do the work, but it's not a huge amount of work if you break it down into little morsels and achievable pieces. But it's 1825 steps of me. And I also think about it's not me becoming that person, it's me becoming the less of who I am. But it is, you have to turn up every day for those 1825 steps.
And I love how you've broken it, because that's one of the key concepts I use with people as well, is the micro steps. So you don't go from where you are to where you want to be. The overnight success thing, any group or pop group that you talk to, there's been 20 years behind that overnight success where it just popped. But for them, they've had the 18-25 different steps that they've taken. And many people, and that's why I like coming back to where you were talking about the extraordinary. An ordinary life is, you know, living, working, sleeping, but the extraordinary is taking, I believe, those steps and making that decision that you're going to take the steps to make that life that you want.
Yeah, and it's not about being success. You know, it's not about, you know, when we talk about success, we just have this idea and we're online, we're on LinkedIn and success, you know, that typical version. It's not, it's about, you know, what sort of life do you want to live? I mean, I can tell you my measure of success. I'm so clear about this, and it took me years to arrive at this. So my measure of success is lack of regret. And I know that when I walk into a room, I'm often the richest person in the room based upon that metric. Yeah. Because I can hand on my heart tell you that apart from saying a few things to people when I just should have kept my mouth closed and not been so horrible, apart from that, I don't regret anything. And so we've talked about some of my successes, but along the way, I've had so many failures to get to there. But that, that's just part of the process. And I never regret any of that, because without that, I couldn't be the person sitting here today. I just could not be that person.
That's wonderful. And I'm glad, because my very first question to you was, what does success mean to you? And I'm glad that we've been able to unravel that some more throughout this conversation, because it does mean different things to different people. It can be freedom, it can be money, it can be this. But I love your explanation as well of lack of regret, because I think we all live these very busy lives and we can forget sometimes how short in reality and how many versions of 1825 that we really do. So I can see that we're running a bit short now on time, but if there was one thing that you wanted to tell your younger self, what would it be?
Oh gosh, yeah. I know you were asking me this before, and I'm just going, I got so many.
Yeah, I trained you well, Julian. These are the
you
questions.
did. I would say early on is to stop comparing myself to other people, because I'm human like everyone else. I'm able to sit here now, and a lot of people say I've got an energetic presentation style. It's because honestly, I don't care. I am, but that has come because I've learned not to stop comparing myself to other people, and like my whole life journey, I have no regret. I wouldn't change any of it. But if I could inject like some, fast track myself in any other way, and earlier me, I'd just say, stop it. Just stop it. It's a pointless exercise. It's very human, but stop it.
And I so agree with you. I think that and for me, it's about building more of that self-belief when you're younger. We tend to get it more as we get older, and we care less about other people as we get older. And it is something that sadly, it's only now through people like yourself and other guests where I'm hoping to keep sharing this message of believing in yourself, whatever age you're at, because there is no tomorrow. Believing in yourself from today is what's important. It reminds me of that, when's the best time to plant a tree? Well, 100 years ago, but today is the second best time. And so building that self-belief, when's the best time? Well, when you were younger, but today is the second best time to build the self-belief.
And the other thing is that you just need to listen to as many people talk about it as possible, so you can hear it in different languages that resonate with you, because it never comes through in the first message. It continue. You need to hear it until,
So that's where I hear you saying tune in every week to the Mindset Michele TV show, so they can hear it from different presenters each week. And it's been so fabulous. But very quickly now, Julian, how can people connect with you? What's the best way to contact you?
Look, the easiest way we're talking here is come and join me on LinkedIn. It's at Julian Mather. Everything on every channel on my website is Julian Mather. Just put the bits before and the bits after, and you'll find me.
That's wonderful. It's been such a fascinating journey. I really love, again, the own up, wise up, step up, the extra and the extraordinary, and the lack of regret. Some brilliant, amazing points there, Julian. Thank you so much for your time today.
I'm happy to be here. Pity I can't talk longer.
Yes, I know. I wish that we did have a whole series of interviews with Julian. I'm sure we could drill down onto lots of the different areas in terms of your incredible experience and background. And I'd love to talk more about the side around learning about the human experience. But that's it for today's really full show again. And thank you to my guest, Julian, and thank you to everybody for watching. Next week, we have the amazing Adam Axford. And so there's a little bit of a synergy. We seem to be having lots of magicians here. Adam Axford is a professional magician. So there must be a lot of magic in the air is what I'm thinking. And so thank you again, Julian.
Thank you.
And to everybody that's watching, thank you for watching. It's been my pleasure and Julian's pleasure to host you for today on today's show. And until next week, be great, be fabulous, and be you.